Hello everyone, my name is Shraddha and this is the solution for assignment 1 Hello World API of Node.js Masterclass. So this is the current folder structure. So I'll go inside assignment 1. So we have two files, config.js and index.js. So we'll head to config.js. Here we are describing what will be the configurations based on the environments. Currently I have just having the configurations of development environment. Similarly we can have for production staging as well. So first we are defining an variable named as environments with a object type. Then we are attaching a development property which is also an object and has two configuration, port and environment name. The port number is chosen as 3000. Our next task is to find out what is the current environment set for that for this particular application. So for what first we are doing collecting the node env variable. Okay, what is the value of process.env.node and if it is a string then we collect the particular environment variable with a lowercase, and if no variables environment variable is set then we take it as an empty string. Finally, we need to decide which environment variable we need to export. So if the user or if we are setting the application environment variable as development, then we will have these values. But if it is set as staging, then that particular environment configuration is not written here. So in that case, we'll take the default one which is chosen to be development. And finally, we'll export the environment variable. So this is for the configuration. Next we'll go to index.js where we have defined the code related to the server. First thing, we are requiring the dependencies. There are three node modules used: HTTP, URL and string decoder. So how these modules are used, we'll see it later on. Also we are requiring one file, that is config file, so that we can use it in our code. This is the same file. Next we are instantiating the HTTP server. Using the HTTP module we are creating the server, and in the callback it gives us the rec and res objects which we are then sending it to a unified server. Currently we do not have the code for the HTTPS server, but in future if we wish to have, then we can make the call to the same function and we'll pass the rec and response object. Next, the HTTP server, we need to run the server and we are providing config.port at which port number it should listen, and finally we are logging it that the console log server listening on port 3000 in development environment. So we are using here ECMAScript arrow function syntax. So we'll come back to this function a bit later. Next we are defining the routes and the handlers. There is only one route defined as given in the assignment, that is the hello route, and when someone, the user, requests the path hello, we'll call handlers.welcome. Handlers is a variable of type object. It has two properties, welcome and not found, which are both a function. Both the function accept one object data, and this is the callback function which is to be called when they have completed their implementations. So this welcome handler is invoked whenever the user requests for the hello path. So inside the welcome function, we are calling the callback function and we are passing the status code as 200 with a welcome message, welcome to purple, as an object. Not found, this will be invoked whenever the user requests for a route which is not present. For example, /hello world. So that particular route isn't or particular path isn't available in our routers object, and in that case not found function will be invoked, and we are just passing the status code at 404, which means not found. Next we'll come to unified server function. It accepts two values, rec and res. Our next task is to pass the request URL, and for that we are using the URL node module and we are passing the true argument as well. This is used for to get the query strings as an object. If you don't provide it, then you will get a string. For example, if the path is slash hello question mark a is equal to 2, and if you log past url dot query setting it as false, you will get a string a equals to 2. But if you pass it as true, then the value will be as an object a colon 2. Next, we are defining a variable called as payload. This will be used down below for getting the request body. And now we are making use of the third node module, that is the string decoder. The string decoder, this purpose is used because whenever someone requests for a post or put request, then we'll get as streams. And this streams we need to write it as a string and get it as an object. On the request object, there are two events, data and end. This data event will be invoked when there is some post or put request and there is some data in the request body. So what we are doing is, this variable payload, we keep on appending decoder.write buffer. What this function will do is convert the buffer into string, and it will keep on appending to the payload. And as soon as the end event is called, whatever payload we have or whatever the string is present in the decoder will just finally transfer it to payload. This end event will be called irrespective of the method request method which is invoked. Our next task is to prepare the request object that we will be sharing with the handlers, the data object. For first, we are collecting the path, headers and query from the past URL. And then we are trimming the path. What does this means is, whenever someone requests for hello and hello slash also with a forward slash, it should do the same thing. So we are replacing any slashes that we have with empty string. So if we have something like hello slash, it will come as hello only. Then we are collecting the method. It can be get, post, put, and in our case it will be get, and we are converting it into lowercase. Finally, we are creating the data object that will be passing to our handlers, which consists of trimmed path, method, headers, query, and payload. Our next task is, based on the path which is invoked by the user, which handler we should invoke. So the variable defined is called as selected handler. On how it is decided is, the trim path, for example, the user is invoking hello. So routers of hello, which will be handlers.welcome, which means type of routers of hello is not undefined, and thus the value will be routers of hello, which will be handlers.welcome. Now for example, if the user is invoking hello world, then that particular path isn't available, so this will becomes as false, that routers of hello world isn't present in our isn't the hello world is not a property of routers, hence this will be invoked, that will be not found because we do not have that particular path. So finally, since that particular handler is a function, we'll invoke the function passing the request data, which is collected as data here, and the callback, which sends us the status code, and the payload that we wish to send back to the user. We have status code and payload. Next, we are defining certain default values if we do not have the status code and payload returned from the handlers. So what we are doing is, if status code is not a number, if it is a number, then take the status code, as the default one will be 200. That if status code is not present or not returned by the handler, then take 200. Similarly, we are doing for the payload. If the particular payload is returned by the handlers, which is an object, then you take that particular payload, else return an empty object. Finally, we are stringifying the payload. We are setting the headers, response headers as application JSON. We are writing the status code, and finally we are sending the response. So we'll go to the terminal. So this is that particular path. To run the server, we'll write node. I think first we need to go to the assignment folder. There we have config.js and index.js. To start the server, run node index.js. So it says server listening on port 3000 in development environment. Now we'll make a curl request. Curl http localhost colon 3000 slash hello. Okay, my mistake. http should be, and we'll get back the message welcome to purple. So this was the solution, or this was the purpose of the assignment. Thank you all.